Okay.
Mm.
So tell me about, I like the hat. Tell me about your, what you've been doing with the workshop.
What have I been doing? Well, I was interested, first off, in how we made the cob with our feet. That was just kind of fun to mush around in. But when we started using the mortar mixer, I just got caught up in doing that because I figured out the right recipe pretty much. So I've made lots of loads. I think yesterday I made 20 loads. And I haven't done any of the cutting, you know, with the hay, what do you call it, the hay cutter? I haven't done any of that. I haven't quite dared to do that kind of delicate work, so I'm doing all the heavy work.
You are the master mixer.
I'm the mix master, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
And another thing that I've contributed is helping you and Ella remember to clamp down wood before you drill it and screw it or saw it. Because I took the clamp off today for just a moment at the wrong time, and the wood spun around and hit my thumb and put a little blood blister. So it's just, I'm your safety officer here too.
Wonderful. Good. That's very important. How did you hear about the workshop?
A few months ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, my wife and I came across a Netflix series called Grand Designs, and they had an episode where a man in Devon in England was building a massive cob house. I'd never heard of cob before, and I was fascinated by it. And I just looked around the internet a little bit, got more fascinated. I had an idea that I don't want to build a house right now, but I had an idea that I might be able to use it for some group activity outdoor sculptures that had been floating around in the back of my mind. And then I saw that there was a workshop, and I saw that it was coming up soon, and I saw the price was right, and I just decided on the spur of the moment I was going to come and get first-hand experience with it. I didn't read the lessons. I correctly guessed that most of what we'd have to do this week was going to be hard labor, and I wasn't going to have to think very hard. And I've kind of enjoyed that.
Has it been relaxing for you?
Yeah, it's been relaxing mentally.
Good.
The decisions I've had to make this week have been like, how much water do I add to the mix, and is this pile of cob that I'm putting on the wall straight enough? That's about as much decision making as I've needed to do. So.
Okay. Well, I would hope overall it is relaxing somewhat, because I know people are using their vacation time for this, for work. And so I want to take that seriously, and I want them to enjoy themselves. It's not about the hard labor. I don't want it to be like that.
Well, for me, I've never camped before. And so camping out here was an adventure in itself. I didn't go so far as to cook my own food here, except when we did those shish kebabs, which turned out well. So I still compromised a little bit with civilization. Mm-hmm. And I admit, today I'm ready after 4+ days of hard labor. I'm ready to ease back into an air-conditioned house and a soft couch.
Yes.
But I have enjoyed it.
Wonderful.
And I do think that this material is going to work for some of the ideas I've had. And that's cool too.
Well, good. Good. I know you. I am very excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah.
Because I really like your ideas. Maybe we somewhat covered this, but where do you feel you're at right now with natural building materials? And if you don't mind sharing, what are some of your goals that you have that you want to do?
Well, I've had this idea of doing large outside whimsical sculptures for a while. And I've looked at various ways of doing things, and the materials seem too difficult to use. I also wanted sculptures that would involve a lot of people in doing the work. There's a man up in my part of the world who builds beautiful sculptural fantasy buildings out of woven sticks. And he has many people help him to cut the gum trees and to weave them together, and they're great works of art. But what I liked about it most of all was that he got a lot of people involved in doing it. So it was a process.
Like a community.
A community process. So I had that as an idea. It's not a commitment. It's not, I know what I'm going to do. And one thing I've learned here is that there are some small projects I can do to start out that are not going to be very ambitious, and that's a great thing to start easy.
And we can always, brainstorm over the phone.
Yep.
You and Alex, or you and me, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. What is your opinion of Alex as and his approach to teaching and learning and using natural materials?
Well, this week, most of the learning has been in the context of putting up the cob. We did put in some window frames, but you'd really done most of the measuring and the preparation on that. I had expected a little bit more in the way of talking through some of the other parts of construction that we're not doing, because you're either not there yet or you've already been there. And we did spend one morning doing a lot of Q&A on that, and that's fine. I realized that all that material is available to me.
Do more of that too.
That material is available, and what Alex has provided. Some of the people had taken his course online and had read the books, the documentation he's provided. Now I know what my questions are, so I know where to go. But I chose not to read up in advance.
Yeah.
And since I'm not looking at building a house at this point, I don't need to know how to run plumbing and wiring into it.
Right.
I am curious about putting the roof on, and I'm especially curious what you're going to do for a roof, how it's going to fit in with the natural materials theme that we have for the rest of this.
Yes, it's still a design process in itself.
I've watched you do that. That's fun too. In this particular structure, you don't worry yourself to death over the details way in advance. This is not like one of those engineered buildings where all the ironwork has to be fabricated to the millimeter and then brought on site. No, we kind of work this out as we go along. That's fun.
And if it's not perfect, we tweak it a little.
Perfect is not an idea. It's not even a word that applies to this world.
I love it. Very true. Tell me about your learning experience here. Maybe some of your takeaways, and if you've had a little light bulb or aha moment. So.
Well, this is a very small light bulb moment, but making the cob the old-fashioned way by foot was fun to sloosh around in, but I did realize after we'd done it a couple times, the quality was not as good as what we got out of the mortar mixer. The mortar mixer's a noisy machine and takes some effort to use, but it definitely makes the job go a lot faster. Another thing, this is just a personal impression, I liked it when yesterday some of us were shaping the pile of cob into rough bricks and then piling them on the wall and fitting them together. I thought that went faster. Maybe it's just...
You might really enjoy adobe block.
I would, yeah. Maybe it just felt faster because when you start piling them on the wall, they look like they're going up. But I do think it might actually suit me to do it that way. So it's not a big aha, but and I've noticed that everybody develops their own ideas of what's going to be the ideal way to do it. Even though none of us knows much about it, we all have our own ideas what we should be doing.
That's true, and everybody seems to find the thing that works best for them. So you have definitely, the mixer master, is that what we're calling it? Master mixer. That is just, we really.
Well, and I discovered that I would add water first. I found putting some water in first and then adding stuff on top worked better than adding the dry stuff and then putting the water in. And then I discovered that at each stage, we have 4 buckets, 1 of sand and 3 of the clay. And at each stage, I would let the beaters go longer than at first I thought was necessary, because the longer they went, I could see it changing slowly by the adhesion to the sides of the tub and so on. And I developed an intuitive sense of, no, this needs another handful of dirt. I also learned that it needs way less straw than I thought it needed. When we first did our batches by foot, we put in a lot of straw and it got in the way. And it turns out I'm only adding 1 small handful to the big mixer. And it's working great.
That's good.
So yeah, just developing a feel for how the material wants to work. And it changes over the day too.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes some of our, excuse me, some of the dirt pile is sandier. Some of it's more clay, some has a little sand. And you can actually see that difference in the mix. And we'll add a little bit more soil to those because they get unintentional extra sand in them.
True, true. Well, I'm glad that you have insight with that. With the, does it need a little more this or that? I mean, that is wonderful because these have been some excellent batches of mix.
Well, that's
And,
good.
I mean, every batch is like, this is awesome, this is perfect, you know, in my opinion. So, and I'm still learning as well.
Well, and Ella and I we worked out a routine. First, we worked out the safety part of it, and because she started it up once when I wasn't ready, and it bucked, you know, and then we worked out. Every time we finished a batch, I'd pull out a handful and give it to her, and I'd take a handful myself, and we'd both test it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd get a consensus opinion before we actually dumped the load into the
And
into
I
the
like
wagon.
that because, you know, it just it's taking the time to test it and make sure it's right before it's one big thing of, oh, there's not enough water,
Yeah.
or there's too much water. So I really, really like that. That's something I've learned as well, definitely. Well, thank you, Stewart.
Thank you, Joy.
Appreciate
It's been delightful.
You've definitely, you know, I think everyone here has developed their special roles and niches, and
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely been a community in itself. I love that.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well, thanks.
All right. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.